and welcome back to the Detours in Music podcast. My name is Laura Rupel. This is season 4, episode 5, an interview with Carmen Granger, the subscriptions marketing manager of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. Hope you enjoy.
I am Carmen Granger. I am the subscriptions marketing manager for the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. I'm also principal viola of the Lima Symphony Orchestra, and I'm also the violist for the women's new music ensemble in Cincinnati, New Downbeat.
Can you talk about your start in music?
So I've always been involved in the arts ever since I was a child. My grandmother is the director and founder of her own theater company back home in North Carolina called Young People's Performing Company. So I've always been in theater and the arts through that. And then my mom babysat for the principal oboist of the North Carolina Symphony growing up.
Cool.
So we would get free tickets to go and see NC Symphony, and her husband was the timpani player for that. So I was kind of exposed from a young age to go and see the orchestra. Mm-hmm. And then, going into 6th grade, you were kind of given that option of do you want to choose band or orchestra or choir? So I was just kind of drawn to the violin and the string instruments just because I thought it sounded like the human voice. And I don't know, I was just kind of drawn towards that path, and that's how I chose the string family. But then I realized very quickly that the violin was a little too screechy for me. So I very quickly switched to the viola after that.
Cool. Do you think you always wanted to pursue music after high school, or when did that change for you?
It was a really hard decision because I did the theater class with my grandmother for a really long time, and she was always very, very supportive of me doing music, but of course she really wanted me to do theater, and there was also dance involved with that, and I always took dance lessons and dance classes, and I was in musical shows, but then I also did the pit orchestra for high school, and there was a split second where I thought maybe I wanted to go to college for some kind of science degree, and I don't know, there was a lot of different routes that I could take, but my grandmother was always very supportive of you should go to school for some kind of arts or music, and I think she really wanted me to go for viola. So I think the switch kind of happened my junior year of high school maybe. And that's when I started doing teaching assistant stuff for my high school classes, and I started doing the beginner orchestra and intermediate orchestra, and started learning how to do the more teaching side of it instead of just playing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when I realized oh yeah, there's a lot more to this than just playing the instrument. You can do a lot more with it, and I think that really helped. And then I sort of migrated out of the theater side of it and more into, okay, music is actually what I want to go to college for.
Mm-hmm. And then where did you go and why?
So I didn't really know much about the whole college side of music, conservatories. I didn't really know that that was a thing, and summer music festivals. I didn't know much about that. So I stayed very close to home. I went to UNC Greensboro, which was about an hour away from where I grew up. And that was pretty much the only place that I applied for music. And I'm really happy that I went there. It was a really great opportunity for me. And the state that I was in, there was a lot of regional orchestras. So I was really thankful to be able to play with a lot of those orchestras throughout my college experience. And the viola studio that I was in was really small throughout college. So there was a lot of new music opportunities and lots of gigging opportunities, and I was just really exposed to a lot of different branches of music and teaching and just lots of different opportunities, I think, because I did choose to go to a small school. So I was
Mhm.
really thankful for that.
Yeah. During your undergrad, what was something that sticks out to you as like, oh, that was a struggle I had with majoring in music or something?
Um, Honestly, practicing was always a big struggle for me.
Hmm.
Um, I knew I wanted to do music, but I think practicing has just always been something that I never wanted to do. And I don't really know why.
Hmm.
Um, I love viola, I love music, but I think for me, um, I never really knew that it was performing was not actually what I wanted to do with it.
Hmm.
Because I think going into college, I was given the two routes of education or performance. And I think in my head, I was still at the point where, like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, of course, I want to like play one day. And I think my teacher was like, yeah, like, that's clearly the route that I see for you as a teacher. Um, but I think the more I got into college and the more I was doing that, I really just wanted to learn more about music and I really wanted to help other people learn about music. But for me, trying to practice, um, it still is just very hard for me. And of course,
Yeah.
I'll do it when I'm really invested in something, but um, it has just always been so hard for me to keep myself accountable and actually practice.
No, I actually relate a lot to that specific struggle. What is some advice you have to people who are in their anywhere in their journey with schooling and music and things are just confusing?
Um, I think doing research for yourself, it was really hard for me, um, realizing farther down the road that there is more to music than just performance and education. For
Hmm.
the longest time, I feel like it has just been shoved down so many people's throats that those are the only two routes of music.
Hmm.
And I think it is more broad now. I think more schools are offering minors in arts administration or, composition degrees and music theory majors. Um, but I think if you're realizing, performance is not for me, but I do really love my instrument, um, I think trying to do the research for yourself and like making those opportunities for yourself, like maybe being a music librarian is something that I want to do, or, taking some business classes or some marketing classes and being more involved in that for yourself,
Hmm.
or entrepreneurship classes. I think is just so important. And it's really hard to realize that for yourself because it took me 6 years to realize that for myself.
Hmm.
So I don't know, just being more aware of that and trying to get yourself in that mindset earlier. I know it's so hard, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What brought you to Cincinnati? Was that right after graduating from UNCG?
Um, Not quite. It's a little bit of a sad-ish story.
Okay.
I knew eventually I wanted to go back for my master's degree. My partner and I had both graduated from our undergrad. He's a little bit older than I am, so he got a job teaching music to adults with disabilities while I was finishing my undergrad. Um, so then I had taken a gap year and I'd got a 1 year position with an orchestra and I was teaching or I was working at a music store, kind of doing some gigging, and we were kind of like thinking about the option of going back to school, and we were like traveling and taking lessons and like toying around with the idea, I guess, but not super serious about it. Um, and then we did actually come to Cincinnati to take some lessons and audition here, and we did audition for some other places. And then when we were here, um, we were kind of tracking this storm that was happening back home.
Okay.
And then, so a tornado had hit our house in Greensboro while we were actually in Cincinnati. And then we had come back home and realized that our stuff had been destroyed, and like our house was like okay, but we had pretty much like lost all of our stuff, and like my car was totaled, and like thankfully our cat was okay, but like I don't know, it was like a pretty tragic situation. So
Yeah.
I mean, that was like in April, right before we were thinking about like going to school, and we were like, okay, I guess this really needs to
Guess we're
happen.
moving.
Yeah. So I mean, thankfully the stars had kind of aligned, so we basically decided to go to CCM, because he had been offered an assistantship, and I basically just like, took out a bunch of loans to go
Yeah.
kind of thing. Um, so that's kind of why we ended up coming to Cincinnati, because we were just here and we really liked it, and there was clearly a lot of jazz happening and a lot of culture happening and so much music everywhere. Like
Mhm.
the scene here is just amazing. You
Yeah.
can go anywhere, any night, and see music and jazz, and it's just wonderful.
Mhm.
Um, but the situation leading up to it was a little bit sad. But
Yeah.
obviously now I don't see myself leaving here. I'm so glad that it happened.
Hmm.
I love it here so much. Um, yeah, I'm so thankful to be here because
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful city.
What kind of led into your transition to focusing on arts administration?
Um, so I had had some kind of one-off jobs here and there, like librarian, orchestra librarian jobs, or like music store jobs, um, teaching jobs, like all kinds of jobs that kind of led into that. But
Hmm.
then, kind of like what I was talking about, that I just really didn't ever want to practice. I was like thinking about that, like, like, is performing really what I want to do? And of course, then I went to my master's and I was doing viola performance, and new music is really what I love focusing on. And my teacher, um, did to a point
Hmm.
support that, but at the same time was just like, okay, like you can focus on that for a second, but then we really need to get back to the basics and really focus back in on, your Brahms and your Bach. And I was just like, this isn't
That's not
fulfilling
why you're doing
me.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really want to learn and experience new music and feel like I'm a part of this community where I'm like giving back and like doing something good.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. It was just kind of like taking these music store jobs, and then like the assistantship that I did end up getting was working front of house in the performance management. Um, so getting to meet with all the different patrons and talking to them, and saying, oh, like, what pieces are you looking forward to tonight at the concert? I don't know, just like having all of those conversations. I realized that I liked talking to people about music and learning about music just so much more than I loved playing the music.
Hmm.
And I do still love playing music, but not like
Yeah.
Bach and Brahms. Like, what is fulfilling for me is different than like the standard stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think if you did not go down the arts administration path, you ever would have returned to like theater or anything like that?
I think I probably might have. Um, I really loved dancing, and I really still love Broadway.
Hmm.
I honestly don't know. I feel like arts is just, it's always been a part of my life.
Yeah.
I feel like one way or the other, I would have looped back to it somehow,
Hmm.
whether it be like, my day job is doing something else creative, and then I'd be like in a community theater or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be a part of me somehow.
Yeah. How would you define like the term detour for your life in music?
Um, I feel like all the detours that I've had are just opportunities hidden in there, or like they're just all the experiences that I've had. Um, because of course, the path that I thought that I had was viola performance going into college, and then here's this detour that may have been this like orchestra librarian job, but that was a huge opportunity for me to realize like, oh well, this could actually be a career path one day.
Mhm.
And then here's another detour of working at a music store, putting in like these spreadsheets and learning how to be like a string specialist for, I don't know, like all kinds of like building connections and but that's a huge opportunity. Like that's a career, like going to conferences and like learning the production side of music. Like
Mhm.
it could be a detour, and other people might think it's a negative, but it's a huge opportunity, and
Mhm.
I feel like if I hadn't had all of that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah. It's like you need to be able to even see what doors exist and then decide like if you want to walk through any of them.
Completely, yeah.
What brought you to your job with the CSO?
Um, so I was working at a music store in Cincinnati before coming to CSO. Um, and I was doing like education outreach type of things, like going to schools, trying to build those connections with the teachers in the Cincinnati area and trying to like build up um, like our area, I guess, of like where we rent instruments and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I really did love my job there, but I felt like there wasn't ever going to really be an opportunity for me to grow there.
Mhm.
Um, and as much as I love my job, it just really was the right time for me to leave.
Mhm.
Um, so then when I saw the posting, I started off as assistant box office manager at the CSO. I saw that posting and I took the interview, and just from the first interview, I just saw friends in the room. Um, and I didn't like have connections with the people in the room, but going into it, it just felt like such a warm and welcoming environment, and I just knew that that was going to be a new place for me to go.
Mhm.
And I, started off as assistant box office manager working with Kyle, and um, it was such a huge learning curve going from a small music store to this like huge orchestra.
Mhm.
Um, and there's just so many people working here. Everyone is like busting it all day
Yeah.
long, so many different departments, and um, yeah, and now I'm just trying to like soak up as much possible information as I can.
What are some of your current goals for maybe yourself as a performer, yourself as the subscriptions marketing manager, CSO, anything like that?
Um, I guess performing wise, I do still want to keep playing. I I'm really thankful to have um, this new music ensemble that I play with that just empowers women and new music and new composers in the Cincinnati area. I'm so thankful to be in this ensemble. It is like very, very fulfilling for me. And being principal viola of one of the regional orchestras here, it gives me an opportunity to still play those classic works, but also the conductor of that orchestra loves new music too. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds being able to be in that orchestra. So that's like I still get like my fix,
Yeah.
to play music in both of those aspects. Um And for the CSO, I'm just really trying to soak up as much as I can right now and learn as much as I can from whoever is willing to give it to me,
Mhm.
whether it be from different departments or my superiors or even, whoever it is in the box office. You can learn as much information from whoever will give it to you. Um, because I feel like I really need it.
Mhm.
I was even like, when I got the job offer for this marketing manager position, I was driving home with my partner, and I was sitting there and I was like, I'm gonna be the marketing manager for this huge orchestra, and like, I didn't go to school for marketing. What are they thinking? And he was like, well, clearly you're qualified. And I
Yeah.
just I immediately like went on Amazon and I'm like buying all these books about marketing. Like, I need to
Yeah.
read, I need to study. Like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I just need to soak up as much as I can and like go to conferences and figure out like who I need to be learning from. And um I just want to learn as much as I can.
Yeah, arts admin is kind of, I guess, a cool thing like that where, yeah, there are degrees starting to pop up, but most people don't have those degrees. And it's kind of something a lot of us come to maybe because we're realizing, oh, I don't like to practice, or oh, like I don't like teaching. And that's like why I work there too, is I was like, yo, let me see if this is something I want to do. But I think all of us are like, yeah, I went to school for music, so I don't really know. I don't know how to use this, or like we're all just trying our best. But um, I think it's awesome that you clearly like are enjoying the hustle.
Yeah. Okay, I like this one from Benjamin Britten.
Mhm.
The old idea of a composer suddenly having a terrific idea and sitting up all night is to write is nonsense. Nighttime is for sleeping. I just relate to that so much
Mhm.
because I find myself coming home from work and just thinking about work all the time
Mhm.
and having to tell myself, no, like, you have to shut it off or just let yourself um, say, once you're home, you're home.
Mhm.
And once you're sleeping, just kind of relax and, let yourself go. But yeah, I just relate to that so much. That's really funny that,
Yeah.
you know,
Like just so everyone knows, like I do have a life.
yeah, I, that work-life balance, I struggle with that
Mhm.
so much, very much.
Yeah. I
Oh my
enjoyed hearing
gosh.
more about your story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed hearing about Carmen. I know I did. Something that I really enjoy doing with this podcast is interviewing people that aren't just the principal players in these major orchestras. I like to interview people who work behind the scenes and people who are still figuring it out, people who are repairmen, people who have just unconventional, like Carmen was saying, not just the educator, not just the performer. Because those are the people, we're all in music, we're all working hard, we all love what we do. And it's things like this that actually promote that idea that there are more opportunities in music than what meets the eye. Thank you for listening, and I hope you catch the next one. Feel free to follow us on any social media or send a DM if you have a guest idea for a future episode. Thanks.